Painting through grief. Art is an amazing tool to help the mindset. Getting lost in art for a while takes your mind away from what's going on in your life. Hi, I'm Chris G. I'm an animal artist, and today I'm starting a new project. It's an affirmation deck of cards to help people going through grief and loss. Each card will feature a soulful animal with words of hope and a little reminder that you're not alone. So to get on with this project, we're going to start with an elephant. And if you want to join along with me, but you're not an artist and you'd like a template to start with, because you might paint it, you might pattern it, you can do it however you like. But there is a link in the description below for a template for you. So I'm going to start by drawing this over with pen. I'm not going with solid lines. It's going to have a character to it, and I can get rid of those pencil lines before I actually go in with the liquid ink, which I'm going to do this one with today. And you might ask why I'm painting an elephant today. And I'm actually going to do a series of artwork which will have wording on it. It's aimed at creating a card deck to help people along with grief. So my husband died 4 years ago, and I've started with an elephant because elephants were something we both loved. And we were going to go on a safari, but unfortunately that didn't happen because we had a disaster in the business that we ran previous to me being an artist, and it prevented us from going. And then we were going to go and feed elephants because someone told us we could do it down at Colchester Zoo in England, and that was the plan. And sadly he died before we even got to do that bit. But you know what? My daughter and her husband bought me that experience for Christmas. And as a family with her boys, we went down and we fed the elephants. And it was just an amazing experience. It was one of horrendous sadness for me. And yes, it made me cry because I should have been doing it with Rob, not with family. I don't know if anyone's fed an elephant or been near an elephant. But what amazed me really was that the elephants' trunks, they suck to hold things. We fed them carrots. I think most zoos feed animals carrots. And it was the suction on the end of the trunk that really got me. And as much as I wasn't supposed to touch the elephant, I actually did. Its trunk was hairy and it was very rough. There was no softness to it. I thought it would have been a bit softer than that. But it was such a lovely day, a lovely thing to go and do with my grandchildren in memory of my husband and their granddad, who they loved and adored. So if you've got my template to do this, you won't need to do this section because obviously yours will be... Oh, well, you might actually fill some extra lines in. Went out to the line there, which is a bit annoying, but I'll work it in later. But yeah, you've probably not got as much detail in, so you might want to add more detail. You might not. You might just want to colour it. You can actually do it with crayon, which is just a nice, relaxing thing to do. And as I say, art, for me, has been a saviour. I was an artist, although we had a jacket business as well. So now I've got the pen line in. I'm actually quite happy with that. So I'm just going to go around the edge of the paper and wet it. So I'm going to do what's called a wet on wet technique today. I've been thinking quite hard about what colour I'm going to go around the elephant because I wanted this to be almost a little bit spiritual artwork. I want to give us hope, want to acknowledge that elephants actually are one of those animals that respect the dead as much as we do. If one of the elephants die, I mean, they do mourn, and then every year they go back to that place they were last with that elephant as a herd to pay respect. And that to me is just amazing. I want it to be a bit light towards the centre of this because it's like, despite what the pain that grief causes, especially the pain in those first months. I can't say days, but it's not, it's months. Sorry if you've only just got to this stage. But that pain is an absolute unbelievable pain in the heart. But there is light, and there is hope. And it does soften, even though at the time it is absolute hell. Sorry. And I'm sure you don't want me to fluff over that anymore because some people just don't get it. And when you've been there, you do. So in the comments, maybe you'd like to tell me a little bit of your journey, where you're at with grief. You might not even have lost, like a husband or your partner. Where are you at? What stage are you at? What's helping you? Who's helping you? That's quite a big question, I can assure you, because that's always a difficult one too. Sometimes people that are there for you aren't always the ones you expect to be there for you. I'm going to leave that for now. I'm actually just going to go and dry that with a hairdryer and come back to you. So I'm all dry now, and I'm going to put a coat on the elephant as well. So I'm just going to do the same. I'm going to go wet on wet, because that first layer, it just helps blend all over the page and we don't get any sharp lines. So this first layer, I'm just going to go in with wet on wet. I don't want to get those tusks. I don't really want to get the heart either, as I got it wet there. If you're using a different medium, which is perfectly fine, watercolour is great, because if you do go over areas, you can lift it, which is always an advantage. I just like my ink tints. I like the colours, they're quite strong. I suddenly thought, as I went off and did the hairdrying, I actually bought a ring not long after Robert died. I saw it somewhere and I thought, so symbolic to have the elephants on a ring. So I'm going to go in with Payne's Grey. My Payne's Grey in here is quite blue, but actually I'm quite happy with it being a little bit blue. Sometimes that's how our mood is, isn't it? A little bit blue. So I'm just going to try and I don't want it too strong a coat, this. So I'm going to spread this out with a bit more water, because it will dry lighter, but I do want it light as well. And I've got it quite powerful, haven't I, really? Let's just take some of that down. Get it when it's wet on wet. The idea is that you can actually get it to go down the page. Just don't want it on the heart. Let's just get that out. There we go. We've got that moving now, haven't we? You know, if you're doing it as off the template, and you really could doodle designs on it, really. You know, like they do in India, and they have the lovely designs down them as well. You know, there's nothing more therapeutic than doing that as well. It's just an alternative way, and makes it personally your elephant. And I decided the outside I want to do the opposite and bring the dark in. So I'm actually going to do that now. So I'm just going to go around the edges of the page with watercolours. So I've not really used them. See how the page now is curling, because I've taken that off and I've got all the edges. I'm going to come in over the yellow a little bit because I want it to blend together. So I'm going to start with this Payne's Grey still, because it's my favourite colour. I might just add a little bit of, what would darken it? A bit purple, that's it. When you're an artist, you know there's points as well. You're doing things and you're thinking, maybe this isn't going quite to plan, and I wonder where it's going to go. But you know, it's very early stages of a piece of art, so we'll get this on. I've wet my table as well, haven't I? That's allowing it to spread both ways by doing it like that, isn't it? So what's your favourite animal? Maybe you'd like to just let me know in the comments. Did you and your loved one have a favourite animal? Have an animal that you both liked? Because sometimes, you know, one likes one and the other one doesn't. We all know that in relationships. I was really lucky with my husband, because we were soulmates. We been together a long while, and sometimes everything kind of blends into one person almost. And that's what makes the whole pain thing even worse, I think, because, you know, that person was your soulmate. As I went in there, I should have made sure that was 100% dry so it didn't bleed in. But I seem to have got away with it in areas, but not everywhere. And that's fine. We'll make it all work. I think sometimes it's the experiments that make something more individual. I'm actually quite liking that now, because I've got that brightness going on. going into the dark, which actually was what I wanted. I think some of my darks went off the page, so I ended up on my table. I should have put another board underneath me really, but never mind. Table's wash. What's your thoughts? I'll be doing this all night. Some of you might be an artist. Might be watching just because you want to see what how someone else got through the grief. Your art might already be helping you. Or you might be creative in another way. You might find sketching, you might be knitting even, you might be, a lot of people are crocheting nowadays, which actually I love crocheting. I found I couldn't listen to music easily, and I was quite sad because I actually listened to one album for 2 years, and it was an album that Rob wouldn't like, so it would never have anything in it that had a memory to trigger me. And I still travelled at first, well not for a year nearly, to some shows with my art. I tried different shows. So I listened to the one album, it was Pink Floyd, and if anyone doesn't like Pink Floyd, well, forgive me then, because I do. Rob didn't either. And the remix one, which I tell you what, The Pulse I think it's called, is 2 hours long. So at least it wasn't like a quick keep on repeat, but I did have it on repeat constantly everywhere I went. I am going to have to let that dry because I'm a little bit saturated now, aren't I? I'm going to end up with puddles everywhere, haven't I? I've got a bit dull blue this side, but that's fine. I think the 2 colours mix and make it that colour. So there we go. I think I'm going to have to go and dry that again, which you really don't want to listen to the hairdryer going. Isn't it amazing how once that paper's dry, how flat it goes again? If you're going to do this with watercolour, make sure you've got some good watercolour paper. And some detail into this elephant now, I think. I'd like to go dark around the edges, but we'll come back to that. So I'm going to still use my nice blue there. I think that blue with the purple was a lovely, lovely colour. It's actually Payne's grey, that one. So I'm just getting some of those darker lines in, but then I'm spreading it rather than let it go harsh on those edges to blend it in. See those yellow bits underneath will more or less get covered now, and if there's a few showing through, it really doesn't matter. It's probably going to add to it rather than distract any more from it. When I'm going in, I'm always changing my colours because that way we get a more realistic piece of artwork. You don't want to be going in with the same colours everywhere. Just slight variations all the time. You know, when I first lost Rob, I read somewhere that it was good to write them letters. Write your, because they are the person you've always spoken to about everything, every problem. And I think that sometimes is a bit that we all find probably one of the hardest, is just not having that one person who gets you, who understands every little bit about you, and they're suddenly not there. So writing, I've got a little book where I wrote letters to him, and it was every night to start with, just telling him where I'd been, what I'd been up to. Never blamed him for anything. It wasn't his fault that he died when he did. Some people say they get angry with people. Well, no, I didn't go through an angry stage with him personally. I was angry with the world, but not with him. Those writing letters, if you know, sometimes it really is that helpful. It's like talking to them. Apparently that's normal as well. I love it when someone tells you something's normal. I had a lovely customer who used to buy jackets off us, and she was lovely anyway. She was a really good, nice customer, but she kept ringing me, and I remember her husband dying, and she said, "Do you talk to him, Chris? Do you talk to him in the house?" I said, "Yeah, I talk to his picture." And she said, "Yeah, that's good." She said, "It's perfectly fine to talk to them." Well, it's a good job really, because I talk to him a lot. I still talk to him actually now, especially when things are difficult, and they are difficult. And I think they're difficult because when things are tough, when things are hard, I've been learning so much tech recently to work on YouTube, to doing videos and editing, and also I've been doing workshops to sell online, and so much tech went wrong. And it's been harder because you've got no one just to say, flipping out, what's going wrong here. Not that he would have helped me with it because he was not tech minded. It would have been the opposite way around. But it's just that person, isn't it? It's just that other person in the room who you can go, this is absolute rubbish, I don't know what I'm doing. And that, I think, is one of the hardest things to get used to, is the fact that they're not there, or there's no one there quite often. What do you find hard? What bits? You might find that some people have family still that lives at home. You know, if you're young, when your husband, partner, wife dies, and you've still got responsibility for children. I didn't have that. But then sometimes when it's just you, it is quite difficult as well. So I'm making this elephant. I've got a reference picture actually on my iPad, but I'm kind of making these colours up as I go along because I didn't want the elephant the colour on the picture. Quite liking it though. What do you think? Write in the comments. You know, if you leave comments, I will always come back and answer those comments, because I want this to be somewhere where you can say and feel safe and say what you like. As I'm painting the legs, I'm getting those curves in. You know, even if you're doing it in pencil crayons or, you know, doodling, try and get a few curves in, because it does make a difference to your animal or your elephant just being real. There are so many creases, don't they? There was me complaining about my wrinkles earlier on when I was going on camera. I thought I hope get better light so that they don't show up so much. Well, an elephant's just there all their life, aren't they? There's lots of detail in there. No, I'm just going to just put random squiggly lines just to give that impression. It's quite dark on that side, so I'm going to come back to the eyes afterwards. Some pictures don't show the eyes very well, actually. It's quite funny, so I might just go onto another picture, a reference picture, and see if I can find something better with the eyes on it. On my website, I did a blog about elephants and why I painted them, because I did actually paint a lot of them to start with. Although I can never remember actually what I painted, and maybe even my camera might tell me if I took photos of them, but I never remember what I actually painted in those first few months. I know I did in the end. I know for a little while I found painting very difficult because I couldn't get my mind into it, but then I found that because it was coming up to winter, I found I painted in the evening. But then I painted in the evening and didn't want to paint in the day because it was like, well, you can't, because of what you're going to do all night. And I didn't go to bed until really late. Does anyone else do that? Because you think, I can't go to sleep, I need to be absolutely worn out so that you get into bed and go to sleep. And then you still awake at 2 o'clock in the mornings, because kind of is a silly time that for some reason you seem to wake up at some ridiculous times with everything going through your head. The whys are so hard, aren't they? I think now I'm further down the road with my grief. I think it's softened. Some days it's harder than others still, though. I don't think it ever actually completely goes, but I don't think that rawness softens, I think. When you pick up more paint, when you've got Derwent, and the Derwent do pencils, but I found I preferred the paint pans when they brought these ones out. But once you've got them wet and you go back in, you don't realise you've got a well of ink there, and you pick up 10 more than you probably want it to. If you mix it on the ceramic plate, though, rather than you can lift it off again. It's not going to dry on there solid. You can reignite it just as you can in there as well. It'll dry up, but just like any watercolour paint, it's only when it's on the paper. Once it's dry, that's it. It's not moving anywhere for you. I'm just going to try this because I really am liking that darkness of it, and just get some of that into those outer edges. I love the wrinkles on an elephant. It just adds so much more to the painting. The first few months, it's like your life has changed so much. You can't even recognise any of it properly. And painting for me, it just took my mind away from it all so much. But you know, at first, I think there is a real element of people come out with classic silly comments, and you know, at the end of the day, if you can just get yourself up and get yourself moving, it's enough. It really is. It's such an effort just to do that. For me personally, I found it really hard to be in the house on my own because we'd worked at home. I have a workshop underneath the house. It's a bit of a funny house I live in, actually. It's on, officially, I suppose it would be a flat, but it's like a cottage, single story at the front and double story at the back, with which was a flat in the 1800s. That didn't make sense, did it? 1800s. Sorry. So it's 1800 building. But being here, when this is where we were all the time, I had to get out. And if I hadn't been out during the day and it got to evening time and it was dark and it was like, but now I can't go out because it's country and there's no street lights or anything, and it takes some getting used to on your own. When there's two of you living here, it's, you know, you don't really mind. I don't mind now. I've got used to it again. But I used to panic that I'd seen nobody at first, because that's the problem when you work together, you live together and everything. You've always had someone with you. So that was a tough bit for me, was that being, and hence why I painted at night and tried to go out during the day, even if it was just a run out to the coast. I'm not too far from the coast. That was my safe haven because I like to watch the tide come in, and it made me feel calmer. But sometimes you just get yourself up and just make yourself a brew, and that's it. You know, that's enough. People think, you know, they come up with classics like look after yourself. I've never really understood what that means, because it's just almost like, well, you've got no one else now, so just get on with it. But really, just make a brew, get up. I think if you're out of bed, it's enough, isn't it? How do you cope with that? Is there anything that's, you know, you've done in a certain way because it suits you? Fine. Let me know. I will answer the comments as well. I'll be keeping an eye open on what comments are coming through, and then I can reply to them. If you like just watching me paint or painting along, or like and subscribe to my channel, because then it'll get seen more and I'll know that you're enjoying it and do more. I've got a plan of doing quite a few of this series, because it was my thoughts on grief. This particular card painting is going to be titled, it's part of a series of acknowledging loss, and this is the courage and confidence section, because regaining that is quite tough. If I can help with a bit of art, then that's great. not sure, and I need to check this, but if there is a way of putting photos in the comments, then let me know how your picture went. Maybe you could put it in the comments and then I can see. Or if there was a way, I'm sure there's my email on here or my website you can link through to an email, or you could actually just pop it on there, and that would be good so I can see how you went on. Was it a good idea to have a template? What's your thoughts on that? It was a very last minute thought last night that I had as I had drawn in the outline ready, because it was a lot to do. That's the bit that you've got to concentrate most on, that's why. I'm going to just try and put a bit of colour into the eyes, which are... Oh, that's not quite the right colour. Let's mix. Well, that's a whole mixture of I wasn't really looking for, but never mind, I want to start off with that. And then we'll build it darker. So you don't really often get that close to the eyes, but I just decided that on this one it would be nice if we actually created the eye, because it is... it's the way into the soul of the eye. They're not quite right, those eyes now, but I can't do anything until it's dry now. So I'm going to try and get some of the heart started. Let's make a nice gap there. I'm just going to build it. I don't want it to kind of bright in the middle, but deep around the edges in the end. But of course, this first coat's just in case I get the colour on, isn't it? It will be a case of building this up just like everything else. Letting the two sections meet. See, now that pan has been left wet, it lifts up the stronger colour easier. But if I go too strong, I went too strong here, and I'll show you in a minute because I've lifted it there whilst I was drying it off. I'm going to show you what will happen if you go on too thick to start with, or once you saturate the paper. So that, yeah, this little bit here will probably, and this one here where it's a bit, will possibly lift off a bit. Yeah. Because I went in too solid. And you can always tell in the end it's too solid. Put some of it in here. Whilst that red dries. So upside down. Back in with that lovely dark colours with the purple and Payne's grey. Let's just get that depth back in that corner. There's going to be some wording on this picture as well, and I can't decide if I'm going to try and find some wording that letters I can cut out, opposed to try and write on it, because one, I can see what it looks like first, but secondly, if I write on it and then I don't like it, it's going to be very hard to get it off again, and it could ruin the picture. So I'm going to try and find some words that I know that I want to get in there, or I might even do them on some, print them out myself first and then put them on. I'm actually going to do the yellow opposite way out as well in a while, yeah? We'll just let this section dry and then we'll take the yellow back out. So while we had that little bit of a break and let everything dry, I actually did put another coat of yellow from there right to the edge, and I didn't film it because I wanted to do it so it all ran off and it was very difficult to film. So yeah, literally from the elephant out, big coat of yellow. So I'm going off a little reference picture that I've got at the side here. I'm just going to add little bits of colour in. I've got to be very patient because it's got to dry in between. So whilst it dries in between, I'm just going to make up a bit more of a darker colour and just get a little bit more depth around some of the dark areas as well. So I'll be back into those eyes now all the time. So I just want to get into those shadow areas and just make it that little bit darker. And we'll do those tusks as well. I am going to go back in with a pen shortly as well. That will clarify all the different areas. Some of this I'm using off my reference picture book, some of it I'm just making up as I go along. Because really, you know, that's what it should be. Some of it, you don't want another copy of that reference picture. You want your own piece of art, which was why I gave you a template. And you know, whether that's helpful or not helpful, or whether you're even doing it, is your choice. And it is therapeutic to have a bit of artwork or a bit of creativity, and it does help you through those really horrible, shitty nights. Most of what I'm doing here is just going in with the darks and just going with curved areas so that it gets the depth in, but also gives the animal shape. Just give it a little bit of eye shape. So quite often you don't see the eyes very well, but I just thought if I can find a picture that has a little bit of the eyes in it, and just so we can put them in, because I just wanted the soul to be seen on this particular one. They have amazing eyelashes though, and that always helps. Just keep an eye on my phone. I'm filming on my phone today, and I know the battery's low, so I've got to just keep an eye on this section. I think she's doing a lovely job of holding onto that heart, don't you? I do believe a part of our heart leaves with our husbands, and a part of theirs stays with us. One's for soulmates forever, aren't we? And it's not something everybody gets. Not everybody gets a soulmate in their life, and I also feel very privileged that I did. Right, let's see what we're doing with this tusk now. I'll pin the colour I want. Better, that one. Although they're quite light, they do get them very grubby, so. Which is a good job really, because I wouldn't be able to paint them very well otherwise, would we? I'm going to completely cheat, because I want a little white dot in the eyes. And the one thing with, yeah, even do this in my watercolour as well, because I just think getting the white is very difficult. I'm going to go around it in pen in a minute as well. Sometimes when you're going along and you're just putting dashes of marks here, there and everywhere, they need joining back together. So a little wash at this point is also a good idea. So it's just like a little mix of all the colours. So is this elephant going to end up more purple? What do you think? Purple elephant? It's not too purple, is it? It's just a wash. It's purple Vince. Gran used to have purple Vince, bless her. It was a long while back. She's come from the hairdressers, and it'd be running down the side of her face. We'd be like, really now, we need to clean you up. She's such a lovely lady. I also found that nice enamel. I live a bit too far away from my grandchildren right now, and hopefully one day I'll change that. But my grandchildren are very important to me. I'd like to get a little bit more depth in the... Oh, I'm not sure that brush is right now. I have to use a filbert brush because I'm going around that heart. It's got a good curve to it, that brush. I don't know why I'm there, I don't like that. There we go. I'll leave a bit of white on that afterwards once it's dried completely. Right, so I leave that to dry completely, then we'll go in with some pens. I'll get my hairdryer out again on it. So I'm just going to add a little bit more depth into this eye before I go in with a pen. There's just tiny little dots of oh yeah, that was a tiny big dot. I'm far too not what I really wanted. So sorry, I'm a bit croaky there. One second. Just put a little bit of shade in there, and then I'm going to attack it with a pen at this point, I think, and then we might add a bit of colour at the end. So let's have a look what pens I've got. So I've got 0.4, 5 and a 7. A 7's quite good sometimes. I kind of need to make sure that the eye's dry before I go into that. So I'm going to start down here at the trunk. It's nice to get that little curved edge in, and it's going to be a bit wider at the bottom, but very close up there with the curve. There's going to be words on this picture as well, and it scares me a little bit when I want to put words on, because I might, after doing all the work, do it wrong. Just got the sun coming in on me now. I shouldn't complain, but sometimes it's a bit blinding from my window. Rather than keeping these completely straight, excuse me, I'm actually sort of doubling over and thickening some areas as well. I will say some people are very neat with the pen work. I'm a bit of a, go for it in a bit of a scribbly manner. And to be honest, some of my work, when I've done it like that, has been very popular in selling it, so that's quite good. What has this got going upwards? Let's make his little toenails out. There we go. So have you painted along? I really would like to see that. That would be great. Or even if you do it later on, yeah, that's also a good idea, isn't it? And I hope you've enjoyed just watching me having a doodle around and chatting generally about the grief journey. There's a lot of stories and a lot of situations I've found myself in, and you just think, really, would this have happened had Rob been with me, or had Rob been alive? I actually originally knew nobody in the area probably that I live either, because we hadn't lived here long, and that was a really tough one to get out and meet people. And some of those people have remained friends and some of them haven't. That's part of life, isn't it? Not everyone is going to be a friend for life. Some people just come in and some people go, and we all know that. It isn't easy sometimes either, though. But I've met some lovely friends as well, which is good. And sometimes you find those old friends disappear. Maybe one day I'll tell you a little bit more about that and some of the crazy things that people say without thinking about actually what they're saying to you, and how that might affect your thoughts at the time, because you are quite vulnerable when you're going through grief and getting out there on your own, when actually normally it would be two of you. I'll tell you one thing, actually, I did go into a restaurant once. Well, it wasn't a restaurant, it was just a cafe. And being a I'd been out and I'd been away and stayed away with some friends to do an art challenge. And on the way back, I thought, I'll just go to Port Patrick, I think it was. Went into a cafe along with a group of people, and they all went to the left, so I went to the right, and I just asked them if they could do a latte, and she said, oh yes. So I went to sit down. She said, oh, you're not with the other people? I went, no, I'm not with them. And I sat on a table that could sit probably 5 or 6 people, and she said, oh, well, if more people come in, I might have to ask you to move. Because I was on my own, and I thought, how rude was that? How absolutely rude. And I travelled for several miles to get there, and I really did want that coffee. And I thought, you know what, love, I'm going to stay for my coffee because there was nowhere else open. But if you think I'm moving for anyone, should they come in, she had another thing coming because I really wasn't going to. But, you know, people don't think that, you know, why are you on your own? It's not by choice. It's because that's how life has left things. So, yeah, that was a bit rude, wasn't it? Thoughtless. Even yesterday I went to a place that I've been before to take some photos of animals. And when I got there, the woman didn't really know me, and she just went, is it just you? And I went, yeah. She said, always nice to get away on your own sometimes, isn't it? And you just think, really? No, actually, it would be nice to have someone with me, but my circumstances are that it is just me, whether I like it or not. And you can't sit at home. If you're newly widowed, I get it. You will, I think that's one of the hardest things. You think when you go out, you've got a label on your head saying, you know, I'm on my own because. And I think I do think in the first few months you also want to tell people, and I think that's quite normal, but it goes because I always wonder if people really give a damn sometimes. Some people don't know what to say and they just say all the wrong things, and there you are, left upset. I've given him quite wild eyelashes there, haven't I? Oh, was it her? Sorry, was it her? Anyway, yeah, she's got very wild eyelashes, but I think that's fun. I'm happy with wild eyelashes. I think mine get out wild nowadays as well. I think some things like that, you just think, well, no one to do these things for anymore, so I'm not bothering. Yeah? Right, now, kind of want to see that on a picture, I think, before I decide that's done. Sometimes when you're doing artwork, if you're unsure, when it's lying flat, you don't really see it. You need to up it as well to decide if you do want to add any more detail in. But also, taking a photo of it, you can see where it needs extra work. Getting a bit squibbly now, aren't I? This is what happens when I'm like, is this right, is this not right? And then I just get a little bit looser at doing it, I think. Which isn't a bad thing. Right, the one thing I do want to do is just create a little bit more depth here on this horn. See, this is not a horn, this is a heart, okay? I don't even know where that word came from right then. God blimey, it's quite funny what you come out with it. If I just create that little bit more depth like that, maybe it'll give it a little bit of shape. There we go. What do we think? Are we there? Does it need to be any darker? I did decide that actually I wanted to do a little bit more into it, into the shadow areas. I think because we're quite dark around here, we need the darks to be dark. So I'm just going to create a bit more of that nice dark that we did around the sides. So it's a bit of a purple. And I think he needs to be quite a bit darker down that way, because that's where the shadow goes. I think sometimes you've just got to be quite bold at going in with areas as well. I think we get a little bit too cautious. Things you do find your art does go through a ugly stage, I would say, which is quite rude to all my animals that I actually paint. But because it does, you have to be aware of that all the time, that this isn't how it's going to be. When you use a pen, with pen and wash, you must always make sure your pens are permanent. Otherwise, you know, when you do it going back like this, you could actually smudge your pen work. on occasions I actually quite like to do that, and I do it on purpose because it's a bit more depth in some of the artwork that I might be doing at the time. Now I'm going to really go for it as a bit pink now, and just go in those highlights areas into pink. What do you think? Is that being all too brave, or? Oh, she's painting her nails as well. A bit too light, isn't it? A bit too weak, should I say? The bits on the trunk just need a little bit more depth and a bit deeper on those, like those, what are they, wrinkles? Let's see how that dries. There probably should be a shadow on the floor as well, actually. And underneath that foot, at the back, should be darker. Okay. I might just top over a few areas with the pen, and I'm sure you can see it better like that as well, can you? Yeah, I really quite like that. I'm going to just let that dry, and I'm going to find the words that I'm putting on it. I don't know if I'm going to write them on or cut them out and put them on, but I might just cut them out and so that you can actually see what my intentions are. I'll decide if I'm drawing them on or doing it digitally. So I really do hope you've enjoyed joining me today and painting the elephant. I'm still not giving it a name really, and I should give it a name because it makes life so much easier. I am putting words on it, and I was going to print that out for you because I did it on my my iPad. So there we have it. So the words there: you are stronger than you know. And you know something? When you travel this journey, you do find strengths that you never ever thought you had. And somebody once said to me, I pray you have the strength to get through this. And now I understand what she meant. And there, your pain is love with nowhere to go. And that's the problem. When you go through grief, it's harder when you've lost your soulmate. Please do join me again next week, and we'll do another card artwork to go with the affirmation deck, not desk. And if you like to like and subscribe to my channel, then you'll get a notification of when that one's up. But I'm hoping that they'll all be up on a Friday.